I'm Martel Cueto, Board Advisor for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And once again, we have a special guest on here who's had some issues going on out there in Weld County in Colorado. Sheriff Reams, nice to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be on with you.
I appreciate it. So you're having some immigration issues out there with some of the arrests. Why don't you fill us in? Let us know what's going on because, look, I heard this story and we had talked about it and it was very frustrating. And I think people need to understand this is the reality of what's still happening. A lot of people think, hey, things are better. They're better as far as people coming into the border. The numbers are down on the southern border, but we still have a lot of interior issues that we need to work out. What particularly was happening out there in your county?
Yeah, so it's a little bigger than just border, but it does have to do with a person who's in the country in a questionable status. We're dealing with a guy named Debisa Ephraim, who's allegedly a refugee from Tanzania. He came across when he was four years old, from what we're being told. He's 21 now. He has a heck of a criminal history, and on September 8th, I was forced to release him from my jail because, I was forced to release him on the charge of attempted second-degree murder from my jail because he was found mentally incompetent to stand trial in the state of Colorado. So not only is Colorado a sanctuary state, but we also have some very feckless laws when it comes to competency and mental health evaluations. So you combine those two things, and again, I was forced to release this person who probably doesn't deserve to be in this country. Anyways, he goes out into society. I warned the public that this guy is a danger based on the charges that we were forced to release him on. That's one of 11 different arrests he's had in the last, I say, 3 or 4 years. I warned the public this guy will be back, and within about 16 days, he shows up on a local campus of the University of Northern Colorado carrying an AR-15 style rifle in the evening hours, scaring a bunch of students. And long story short, a warrant was issued for his arrest by the UNC Police Department. My deputies, along with officers from the Greeley Police Department, tracked him down, brought him back into custody, and he's sitting in my jail again. And we're going to rinse and repeat on the competency issues about whether or not this guy can stand trial for what he's most recently been arrested on. The bigger problem is this guy, like I said, he's a refugee from Tanzania. We're trying to work with ICE in the state of Colorado to see if he can be deported. As you well know, I'm not supposed to be working with ICE in any capacity, so
Right.
That's problematic. And then number two, the information we're getting from ICE is that, because this guy was given refugee status at some point, they can't deport him without two major violations of criminal law, so felony level violations. Well, he's never getting convicted of anything because of Colorado's feckless competency laws. So he's been arrested, like I said, I think 11 times and found incompetent to stand trial from the first arrest on, and that just keeps carrying over. So it's basically like this guy's got a get out of jail free card and a stay in the country free card. I'm telling you, if you're anywhere else in the United States, you do not want to model your immigration policies or your competency policies after Colorado, because we've definitely gotten it wrong.
So this individual, he's been arrested numerous times, of course, but in this particular incident, he's on a school campus with an AR-15, and he's eventually going to get released also because they're failing to convict the individual. So what would you ask, or the politicians first and foremost is, what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for an actual life to be taken away from this individual and even then, are we even going to have a conviction, or are they going to turn around and claim some kind of mental insanity and they're not going to convict him anyway? This is going to turn tragic, and I guess it's frustrating for you because you're there in the middle of it. It's frustrating for me, and it should be frustrating for anyone that's listening that you're pretty much handcuffed during this situation.
Yeah, it's very demoralizing to law enforcement in Colorado to keep dealing with these situations. And, like I said, this guy probably doesn't even have any legal reason to be in the United States. He has proven he doesn't want to follow the laws of our country. He's repeatedly released from jail and he goes right back into violent activity. But, it's even more compounding because in Colorado, he can be found mentally incompetent to stand trial, but not have an underlying mental illness. So basically, what they're saying, and pardon my French, but they're saying he's too stupid to understand how dangerous he is. So they're just letting him out because he doesn't understand, allegedly, how the criminal justice system works. But, he keeps violating the law. And I think anybody understands that carrying a gun on a college campus is probably dumb. Beating someone almost to death with your fists is probably against the law, no matter where you go in the world, including Tanzania. So, it's just a loophole that I've repeatedly called on our governor in Colorado, Governor Polis, to call a special session, bring the legislature back into action, and fix this issue. But instead, they whistle past the graveyard and pretend like nothing's wrong.
Yeah, that's very, very, very frustrating. So right now, let's just to know he's in custody right now.
He's in custody right now, and they're starting the mental competency issues yet again, the evaluations. And the attorney general has inserted themselves in this particular most recent arrest because of how much attention he's gotten. And they're trying to figure out if they can keep him in a mental hospital somehow. But nobody's concerned about getting an actual conviction on this guy.
So it's basically like you just said. It's going to be another rinse and repeat situation. That's the frustrating part. Or do you see at this point now the politicians there in Colorado finally reaching a decision of saying, "Hey, look, we got to prevent a tragedy. We got to do something"? Or do you honestly have you lost faith in that and just you believe they're going to just have you release him again?
I have little to no faith in those folks to do the right thing because, again, when I warned of this issue happening on September 8th, when we had to release him, that would have been a great time to call a special session. Instead, they wait till he's re-released, and we're how many days past September 16th when he was rearrested. They've still not called a special session. They're still pretending as if there's some fix in the system that no one's discovered that's going to keep this guy safe or keep this guy safe from our community. And quite frankly, it doesn't exist.
Again, you're listening to I'm Artel Cueto with the Federation for American Immigration Reform. We got Sheriff Reams out there from Weld County in Colorado, and one of the things, what are the gun laws in Colorado? Because I mean, you're telling me this guy was walking around in a school zone with an AR-15.
Yeah, so we have some of the strictest gun laws that you could ever want, but and I say ever want, I don't want any of these gun laws. To be honest, they're ridiculous, but the underlying issue here is this guy doesn't care about his criminal behavior. He almost beat someone to death with his fists. The gun is not the issue, but he has this proclivity to go out and find guns and borrow guns from his friends, and he also has this attraction to the University of Northern Colorado campus. I think he's been trespassed there 7 times with this most recent incident. That combination is just bad. And for anyone that's watching this podcast, they probably understand this, but criminals don't care about following the law, and they're certainly not going to care about following a gun law. Again, Colorado just keeps getting it wrong. They make it harder and harder for law-abiding citizens to acquire a gun, but they don't really think about the fact that criminals just do it anyways.
So you've been very outspoken about the issue. I know you've been talking about it. I was on your show when we spoke about it for quite some time. But are you getting anybody else that's being outspoken? I guess, if you're seeing an issue at the university, is anyone from the university speaking about the issue?
Well, you would think so, Art. But the university's been absolutely silent on this because, again, who typically controls the universities? We have lawmakers in the state of Colorado that are pounding the table and saying something needs to be done. We have some folks that are running for higher office that are doing the same. But the people who are in office, our current governor, our attorney general, others, they could doing anything. They're certainly not reaching out to me. They're certainly not interacting with me. It seems as if, like I said, they're just hoping it'll go away and die off quietly, and that's not what's going to happen.
Right. Well, that's a real frustrating situation. I'm sure you're having to deal with it. And we're going to continue and be on top of this story. I want to thank you for taking the time to come out here. And we're going to try to push this story to as many means as possible because people need to know, look, these laws are putting a lot of individuals in danger. And it is frustrating where you're standing on having to, arrest these individuals and then have them released. But it's also frustrating to know that there's leadership there that aren't speaking about the problem, specifically, individuals at the school. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be on here, and thanks to all the listeners and watchers, viewers out there. Again, look, share this as much as possible because people need to know the truth of what's happening, and we need to make sure that we call our lawmakers and we stop something like this because it's a red flag, and I would hate for a worse tragedy to happen because of these laws that we're having to push through. So again, thank you for taking the time, and on behalf of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, thank you all for paying attention to serious issues.